Good morning. Welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. My name is Sandy Levesque. This is a daily hangout Monday to Friday where we read from Think and Grow Rich or lecture notes from Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, and share any relevant experiences or insights or other stories that can help you to really unprogram from the lack mentality that's so prevalent around us. So I'm just going to check that I've got the correct link in the Facebook group because it's weird that no one else is here except me. That tends to be quite rare these days. I'll just check. Huh. It could be that it is just me today. Okay, if you're watching and you're having trouble getting into the Hangout, just let me know. Oh, hi, Glenn.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing fine.
Ah, cool. I was wondering if I'd posted the wrong link because I thought it's strange that I'm the only one here. Oh.
Well, I've got about 4:13 a.m. So
Oh,
about minutes early, but
that's so odd because I have 11. Well, I have. I'm four. My clock is 4 minutes ahead of yours then because
darn.
I started the recording 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Um, that's really funny. I wonder if I'm just really ahead.
I'm looking at my computer time there.
Yeah, me too.
Usually
Oh,
it's pretty.
no, no worries. Um, so yeah, so I was just introducing the Hangout and saying that also I said this yesterday. If you'd like to come on, you're very welcome to. Just click on the second link that I post, which takes you into the Hangout. I also put some quite detailed instructions in the Facebook group yesterday about how to use Google Hangouts if you're a total newbie. The good news is it's really easy. Wouldn't you say it's easy, Glenn? Because you didn't know how to use Google Hangout just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I read your little detail on how to use it, and then started, and I've learned as I went along too. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's easy.
yeah, exactly. It's not. It gets easier the more you do it, like with anything. Um, so I was just finding where we are on the PDF, and basically we're on the fourth one of 9, page 14, and we're on the 15th bullet
Yeah.
point, where Napoleon's basically going through 31, I think, or no, maybe not as many as that. He's going through the the real when you strip all the extra stuff, like the basics of his philosophy of what he noticed of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world at the time when he was interviewing over 500 of them. So, would you like to read, Glenn, or I'm happy to read? I really don't mind.
Well, why don't you read, Sandy? I read yesterday, so
Okay.
it's nice to hear your lovely voice.
Okay, cool. I can. I'm home alone today, so I don't have to worry about making noise as much. um, okay, so I'll screen share, and here we go. Okay, so all right, so we're on. So basically, yesterday we talked about enthusiasm, having an open mind, always doing more than you're paid to do, and being flexible as well. Oh, that was kind of open mind. So he's just kind of going through basic traits of successful people that he's noticed. So number 15, the habit of listening much and talking only when necessary. I wonder of you how many. I wonder how many of you listen more than you talk. Would you give me your hands? And by the way, when he says that, he means like put your hands up.
Yes.
Um, show me a array of hands. The audience laughs. I've never yet heard of anybody learn anything while he's talking, except that maybe they might learn to talk not so much. This seems kind of funny, but it's not funny. It's very serious. The vast majority do a lot more talking than they do listening, and they seem dead bent on getting the other person told off instead of listening to see what the other person has to say that they might profit by. Listening much and talking when necessary. Think first and talk last. Point 16. A well-developed sense of observation of details. How many of you feel that you have a keen sense of observation of details? How many of you feel that you could walk down State Street here or any of these streets in front of Marshall Fields? This recording was in Chicago, Illinois, back in 1954. Just a bit of information there. Just casually walk by, and then after you got at the end of the block, would you be able to give a very accurate description of everything you saw in the window? And Marshall Fields is a shop, by the way, for people not in the US. Napoleon once belonged to a class in Philadelphia, directed by a man who taught the importance of observation of small details, because he said it was the little details that make up the successes and the failures of life, not the big ones, but the little ones, the ones we usually pass aside as not being important. In a part of Napoleon's training, he took them out of the hall down the street one block. They crossed over the street, came up one block and back into the hall, and in doing so, passed about 10 stores, one of which was a hardware store. In that hardware store window, Napoleon thought that there was easily 500 articles. He asked each one of them to take a pad, paper, and a pencil along to give them a crutch for their memory, and to put down the things they saw as they passed along that they thought were important. Guess how many was the greatest number of things that any of them put down going 2 blocks, covering at least 20 stores? Audience members: 10, 30, 80, 20, 25. Napoleon and audience members laugh. Napoleon: you'll be surprised. The greatest number of things that anybody had down was 56. When this man came back, he didn't have any paper and no pencil. He listed 746. He described each one of them, told what window it was in and what part of the window it was in. Napoleon did not accept it. He had to go down there after class was over and backtracked it. The man was absolutely 100% accurate. In other words, he trained himself to observe details, not just a few of them, but all of them. A good executive, a good leader, a good anything is a person who observes all the things that are happening around him, both the good things and the bad things, the positives and the negatives. He doesn't just happen to notice those things that interest him. He notices everything that may interest him or may affect his interest. Attention to details. Next point, 18. The capacity to stand criticism without resentment. How many of you can do that? Come on, give me your hands. Now I'm going to test you another way. How many of you invite friendly criticism from other people? You're overlooking a bit there, friends, those of you who didn't vote. One of the finest things that could possibly happen is to have a regular source of friendly criticism in the thing that you're doing in life, the thing that constitutes your major purpose at least. Napoleon said, I invite it because the things that you're doing daily that may offend other people, you may think they're all right, or you wouldn't be doing them. You're going to keep on doing them unless somebody doesn't call them to your attention. Is that right? Female audience member: right. Napoleon: you need a friendly source of criticism. It's one of the most marvelous things in the world. I'm not talking about those people who don't like you and criticize you just because they don't like you. That's no good. I wouldn't let that have any effect on me whatsoever. On the other hand, I wouldn't take too much attention to the person who gives me friendly criticism just because they love me. You can do yourself just as much damage that way. Napoleon heard it said out in Hollywood that when the stars begin to believe their press agents, and sometimes they do, they're just about through. You need to have the privilege of looking at yourself through the eyes of other people. You need that privilege. When you walk down the street, you won't look the same as the other person sees you, as you think you look to yourself. When you open your mouth and speak in conversation or otherwise, what registers in the other person's mind is not always what you think is registered at all. You need criticism. You need an analysis. You need people to point out changes that you ought to make, because we all have to make changes as we go along. If we didn't, we wouldn't grow. Did you know that the majority of people resent any kind of suggestion or criticism whatsoever that differs from what they're doing? Anything at all that would change their way of doing things. They resent it, and consequently they do themselves great damage by resenting it. Someone once said, there's no such thing as constructive criticism. Napoleon didn't buy that. He thought there was such a thing as constructive criticism. He thought it was wonderful. Remember that no matter what you're doing, who you are, or how well you do it, you'll never get 100% approval from the crowd. Don't expect it, and don't be disturbed too much if you don't get it. 20. Loyalty to all whom loyalty is due. Loyalty came at the top of the list in Napoleon's Book of Rules. of qualifications of people he wanted to be associated with. If you don't have loyalty to the people who have a right to your loyalty, you don't have anything, no matter how brilliant you are, how sharp or smart you are, and how well educated you are. The smarter you are, the more dangerous you may be if you don't have loyalty, and if you can't be loyal to the people that have a right to your loyalty. How many of you people are loyal to the people you are supposed to be? Napoleon: that's grand. I don't mean to make any of you tell lies, and I'm sure you wouldn't, but I just wanted you to check up and see when you start voting before you do it. Before you do, usually speaking, you think, do I have loyalty? If you don't have it, you think of the person in connection with. Okay, if you don't have it, think of the person in connection with which you don't have that loyalty and decide that you will do something about it. Napoleon had loyalty to people that he didn't even like. He had a sense of obligation to the people if he was related to them in a business or otherwise. In his family circle, there were a few people that he didn't particularly like, but he was loyal to them because he had that obligation. If they wanted to be loyal to him, that was fine, but if they didn't, that was their misfortune, not Napoleon's. Napoleon had the privilege of being loyal, and he lived up to that privilege because of the value he got out of it. And because he had to live with himself. He had to look himself in the mirror every morning, shave his face, and give him a bath every once in a while. He had to be on good terms with him. You can't live with a fellow that closely and not be on good terms with him. To thine own self be true, and it must follow as night and day. Thou canst not be then false to any man. Shakespeare never wrote anything more beautiful and more philosophical than that. To your own self be true. Be loyal to yourself, because you have to live with self. If you're loyal to yourself, the chances are that you'll be loyal to your friends and your business associates. 23. The necessary attractiveness of personality to induce cooperation. How about this business of an attractive personality? Is it something you're born with, or is it something that you must do about on your own initiative? Audience members: you can acquire it. Napoleon: you can acquire it. There's only one trait, only one of the 25 factors that make up an attractive personality that you're not born with. Only one, and that's personal magnetism. You can do something about that. You can do something about every one of the other 24 factors because they're subject to cultivation through what? Female audience member: personal initiative. Napoleon: yes, personal initiative, of course. You've got to do it yourself. First of all, you've got to know how you stand on each of these points, and you can't always take your own word for it. You've got to get your wife, your husband, or someone else to tell you. Sometimes you may have an enemy, and he will tell you where you fall down. Did you know that enemies were good things to have every once in a while? Female audience member: yes. Napoleon: why? Audience gives various answers. Napoleon said, well, of course, believe you and me, they don't pull punches. If you'll examine what your enemies or those who do not like say about you, just having some water, the chances are that you might learn something of value. If nothing else, you'll learn at least to see to it that you don't let them tell the truth about you. Whatever they say is not correct because you're not going to be so straight on the road that whatever they say about you that's derogatory is not going to be true. That's an advantage, isn't it? Do not be afraid of enemies. Do not be afraid of people who don't like you because they may say things that put you on the track of discovery to something that you need to know about yourself. Napoleon had a salesman come in and see him, and he said that he had been with a company for about 10 years. He had a wonderful record with several promotions, and all of a sudden, 6 months previously, his sales began to go down. Customers that used to give him business would frown on him. Napoleon noticed that when he came in, he had one of those big Texas 10-gallon hats on. Napoleon said, by the way, how long have you had that hat? He said, I got it about 6 months ago down in Texas. Napoleon said, listen, fellow, are you selling in Texas? The guy answered, no, I don't make Texas very often. And Napoleon said, only wear that hat when you go down to Texas because they don't like that hat here. It doesn't look good on you. He said, will that make any difference? Napoleon answered, you'd be surprised what a difference it will make. Some people just don't like the way you look, and they won't do business with you. So yes, you can do something about your personality. You can find out the traits that you have that irritate other people, and you can correct those traits, but you have to do it yourself. You have to make the discovery yourself, or you have to get somebody who's frank enough to do it for you. Point 24. The capacity to concentrate full attention upon one subject at a time. When you start to make a point, exploit it right down to its final analysis. Make a climax and then get on to your next one. Don't try to cover too many points at one time. If you do, you'll not cover any points at all. It used to be one of Napoleon's most outstanding weaknesses. He used to have a bad habit of taking on something that wasn't related to the point he was making, and then coming back later on, picking up the point. In the meantime, it got cold. Grade yourself on the capacity to concentrate full attention upon one subject at a time. Whether you're speaking, thinking, writing, teaching, etc., concentrate on one thing at a time. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you might as well just not make them. Audience, Napoleon laughs. If that isn't true, tell me what is. Napoleon had never seen a man duplicating a mistake over and over again that he didn't think, without thinking of that old Chinese proverb, if a man fool me once, shame on the man, but if you fool me twice, shame on me. There's a lot of people who should say shame on me because they just don't seem to learn from mistakes at all. 26. Willingness to accept full responsibility for the mistakes of one's subordinates. If you have subordinates and they make mistakes, it's you who fails, not the subordinates. Remember that, will you? Either train them how to do the thing right or put them in some other job where you don't have to supervise them. Let somebody else do that. The responsibility is yours if the person working under you is subordinate to you. 27. The habit of adequately recognizing the merits and abilities of others. Don't try to steal the thunder from another person. After they've done a good job, give them full credit. Give them double credit. Give them more than they're entitled to, rather than less. A little pat on the back has never been known to hurt anybody when you know they've done a good job. The most successful people like recognition, and sometimes people work harder for recognition than they will for anything else. Some people are incorruptible. You can't over-flatter them because they know what their capacity is. If you go beyond that, they might begin to be suspicious of you. Most people, however, are corruptible when it comes to this business of flattering. You can over-flatter them and they believe it. That's bad for them and for you too. There was a book written and it was widely distributed all over this country. The central theme of that book was that if you want to get along with people, flatter them. Flattery is as old as the world. It is one of the most deadly and one of the oldest weapons. It's also one of the most dangerous. Too much flattery is not so good either. Let's just see. I think I'll stop there. Because yeah. So we'll stop at the flattery point. Oh, hi, Geraldine.
Hi.
Hello. I was just thinking, I think the book that he's talking about there with the flattery is How to Make Friends and Influence People. By a guy who, funnily enough,
That's the last name. It's Carnegie, yeah.
Yeah, he changed his name to make it the same as Andrew Carnegie's. Yeah. So Dale used to be called Dale Carnegie, and he changed it to Dale Carnegie. I've actually read that book too, and I would add, just in addition to what Napoleon's saying there, he says, be careful of flattery and sincere compliments, because when you're flattering someone, often it can feel a bit fake because usually people flatter you. It's got this connotation that it's not totally sincere, that you're just doing it to get something. And so in that book that he's referencing, he does say, you want to sincerely appreciate things in people, find something to appreciate and compliment them on that. Don't just be fake. So anything come to your mind as you heard that, either of you?
Well, I do love the Shakespeare saying, to thine own self be true, and then you can be false with no man, right? I think that's a great that's a great thing to kind of say to yourself once in a while, right? You know,
Yeah.
your own self be true, you know. And if you can do that, then that's part of staying sincere, right? Part of avoiding flattery, right? For just for being, you know, for flattery itself. You know, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was reading, so I didn't quite have the chance to totally get that as I read it. Does he mean that if you're if you're true to yourself, as in you don't you're loyal to yourself, then you can be more loyal to other people? Or does he mean if you're not lying to yourself, then you don't lie to other people?
Yeah, then you can be false to no man, right? Be true to yourself, and you can be false to no man. Well, flattery is can be false, right? Too, you know.
Yeah,
In fact, let's look at the line. I'll see if I can find the line while we're talking here, and I'll read it back again because I think
yeah,
it's a pretty powerful thing. And I remember hearing that when I was or reading that somewhere in Shakespeare years ago. You know, when I was a young person, that always stuck with me.
yeah, yeah. I just didn't quite get it on the moment why he was the way he put it in the
Oh, the context, yeah.
yeah, like just
Let me
it
go
should
back
just
to it.
be, you know, when you read, you don't really have time to sort of think about stuff.
Yeah,
Because he's saying that he was loyal. He was loyal to himself. He had loyalty to people that he didn't even like. Um, I guess he means when you
yeah.
just develop that principle of loyalty, even if
Loyalty, yes. Yeah.
yeah, even if
I see it in a very broad sense, you know. Be true to yourself and you can be false to no man, right? So, you know, if you are really true to yourself, then you know you don't want to indulge in lying, you don't want to indulge in
yeah,
flattery, right? You know, you don't want to indulge in things that remove you from your honest self. You know, yeah, I think that's important.
yeah. But I mean, does he mean by being loyal to yourself? What does he? I guess you can interpret it a lot of different ways. I just wondered what he meant by, you know, being
Being
loyal to yourself doesn't.
true to yourself, yeah, being true to yourself, true to
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Well, I guess he means like
I couldn't
having
find it for some.
self-respect um and not lying to yourself. You know, being consciously aware of things, and
Yeah.
then you'll. Because I guess when people lie to themselves about things, or they don't really respect themselves, they don't respect other people either. So it kind of ripples that out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So and then he talked about having an attractive personality that you can develop that. Um, he spoke about the guy with the hat, the Texas hat. That was a funny story.
Yeah, that was right. So just you know, sometimes if you wear something that's not in place with the people that you're dealing with, right? That can be a reaction. That's so funny, isn't it? You know? Yeah, I did find this section here where he said Napoleon had the privilege of being loyal and he lived up to the privilege because of the value he got out of it, and he had to live with himself. And he had to look in the mirror every morning, shave his face, give himself a bath once in a while. He had to be on good terms with him. You can't live with a fellow that closely cannot be on good terms with him. Said, to thy own self be true, it must follow as night and day. Thou canst not be false to any man. And he says
Yeah.
Shakespeare never wrote anything more beautiful and more philosophical than that, right?
Yeah.
You've got to live with
Yeah. That's what we were
yourself,
just
right?
talking about.
You have to be true. You know, when you look in the mirror, you have to say, am I honest, right? Am I being honest with even with myself, right? Am I, you know,
Yeah.
am I looking at myself truly, you know, the way, and look at your, try to see yourself as other people might see you too, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
that's what he was saying here is that a lot of people just kind of have people that tell them what they want to hear, I guess, around them. And
right.
um, did that give you? Because he talked about it a lot actually, like getting other people to give you constructive criticism. I think that's what's useful about having a mastermind, like a small one, you know, where you meet on a regular basis,
You get
where
feedback.
they can sort of see where your weak points might be, and not like from a place of why haven't you not done this, or you know you shouldn't be doing that, but like from a place of I think you know what you're doing would be even better if you did it this way instead, or
Yeah,
maybe that's not working because of this or whatever. Like, um,
being tactful in stating it, right, and stating the criticism too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
I think
know.
that's a really useful point. And the
Yeah,
other thing that sort of stood out to me was the first point actually about listening more than you talk. Oh, and we lost Geraldine. Oh, I know your connection's not so good down by the beach, Geraldine. Um, hope you can make it back on. It would be lovely to hear your Irish voice. um, so, yeah, he said the habit of listening much and talking only when necessary.
yeah.
Actually, this reminded me of a remark that always stood out in my head. Someone I know had seen a woman who I follow a lot on the internet who is a very successful businesswoman and works with Oprah and hugely well known, very successful. And she was at a small event, and he saw her, and he said that something he noticed was that when she was on a panel, and that when the panel was asked questions, most people would jump to answer straight away, and she took time before she opened her mouth. She didn't just kind of start speaking. She really seemed to think about what she was about to say. And I always thought about that because I think that's she obviously listened a lot, and that's also something that that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, talks a lot about, is like listening to others and not and sort of fighting that urge that we can have sometimes as humans. I think to be already thinking about what you're going to say next, or to be not totally present with what the person's actually saying.
Yeah, listening is an art in itself, in that if you really listen and do not be thinking of a counter argument or something like that, right, but just listen and really hear what's being said, it's a much more constructive interaction, right? Really, it is. You really
Yeah,
listen. Listening, you can practice listening too. It's a very important thing.
yeah, yeah, because you can actually miss things really easily when you don't totally listen, or people hear. And that also comes back to the other thing he said about details, like observing the details and things. um, it reminded me of a film actually that I watched years ago, and I still think about it sometimes today. It was with Brad Pitt and Robert Redford, and they play. It wasn't like a brilliant film or anything, but it had like mediocre success. But it was all about this CIA agent that trains a younger guy, and it was about like their adventures in Europe. And I
Oh,
think it had the number 15 in the title, or it might have been called 15. I'll check in. If I find it, I'll post it in the comments.
yeah.
Um, and what happened was that the older guy, Robert Redford, is teaching Brad Pitt how to be a good spy. And it
Oh,
was so fascinating because you realize how they don't have this, they're not superheroes, but what they've done is they've developed this muscle of really paying attention to small details. So they showed things, the guy picking up on stuff that the Brad Pitt character had not even noticed at all in the beginning. It was like, and he began to like. Then you start to see the world through the eyes of a spy, of a detective, and you realize, wow, their vision is, they're so aware. They're like an animal that can smell and hear everything and see
their
it because it's right in front
observation,
of them. Sorry?
their observation, yeah. Yeah, their
Yeah,
observation,
exactly.
right, become very well. I got that when I was a kid. I used to read the Sherlock Holmes stories, and part of what you really love about that is how he could look at something. He could tell 15 different things about somebody just by mere observation that other people wouldn't even see. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really a great thing, even for young people, to read Sherlock Holmes and learn some things about observation too. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the exactly the same principle, and that's what Napoleon is referring to. And he gave that story of the guy that noticed 647 things, I think,
Yeah.
when
Amazing.
other people had noticed, 50 at the
Yeah.
tops, at the most. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a great point because sometimes it's easy just to look at the big picture. Um,
Yeah.
and the other thing that he talked about, I'm just looking back at the notes before we finish. Personal initiative. Oh, concentrating fully on one thing at a time. This was definitely written before the ADD time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of people don't do that now. Although I think there's something to be said for it, because when you do, it comes back to developing that presence when you are able to focus on something.
Uh-huh.
It I think a lot of people resist it because it feels, you know, there's a point where you just want to not do something unless it's really easy, and that's when often people will just flick their attention to something else. And
Yeah.
if you can sort of go through that and just really sit down and do what you've got to do, um, or focus on whatever you're doing, you'll get so much more out of it.
Right.
It's like even with this hangout, sometimes, not so much now, sometimes in the beginning when people would start to read, I noticed this kind of this habit I had of kind of switching off a little bit because someone was reading, and a couple of times, right in the beginning, I would go and check Facebook as they were reading, and then I was like, hang on a minute, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I'm I I started this hangout so that I could read this book with other people, and I'm not even doing that. And I had
Yeah.
to kind of mentally bring myself back.
Yeah.
And I think it's something when you notice it, you can easily correct it because it doesn't happen anymore. Um, but it is easy to slip into that habit, and I think sometimes people use the label of ADD as a bit of an excuse to, uh, you know, not be very focused on stuff.
Well, I think modern technology is inclined to distract
Yeah,
us, and we have to work every day, like you said, to to focus on the things that you should focus on, right? That need focus, right? You have to
yeah,
do that. It's discipline. Goes back to discipline too.
it is, and also like I just sometimes find the word discipline a little bit uh, I think because it in French it has really horrible connotations.
Oh, really?
I like to think of it as as mental strength
Yeah,
because
yeah.
just a different word, just throwing it out there. And something that I've noticed
Focus.
that,
Another word I use is focus. Focus, right?
yeah, exactly.
Focus.
And the thing is, not even just for the sake of focusing, but for the pure fact that you'll get so much more out of whatever you're doing. Because I noticed, that the times when I did check out mentally and just not really pay attention, I would barely get anything out of the reading because I hadn't been listening. I'd gone off and done other things.
Yeah.
And when I listen now, you know, it changes my whole energy for the rest of my day. Often what we
Yeah.
read in these hangouts.
Me too.
So
Me too.
you're missing out, I think, on that if you do allow yourself to kind of get too distracted and just never really like put your attention on anything.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I can't believe it's Friday tomorrow.
Yeah, right. And then next week you're traveling again. Yeah.
Yeah, but not till the weekend. So next week will be. Oh, I know why it feels like we've barely met this week because we didn't meet Monday and Tuesday. I was like, how can it already be the last one this week? um, yeah. So next week will be on as normal, and then it's
Well,
just the
when,
following
when are
week.
you going then? When are you going to Portugal, Sandy?
Next Saturday, not this one, the
Oh,
one
oh,
after. So I'm
okay.
actually going to be traveling at the week, which is quite good. But I'll definitely miss Monday's hangout, perhaps Tuesday because we're arriving on Monday morning.
Yeah,
So I won't be able to do the hangouts, but I'll post next week anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming out, Glenn.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, and have a great day.
You too. Full of energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. With focused attention,
Focus.
like,
That's our word for the
and
day. Focus.
yeah, and inspired by Shakespeare and Napoleon. Oh, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for watching, and just remember that you can all of us can apply what Napoleon is sharing in these lectures and the book, and that nothing can stop you when you decide that you're just going to change. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.